A shootout loss and an overtime win. It's a pretty good start for the Blue Jackets in preseason. Can they keep it up, though? That's what we're going to talk about on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Foster. Just me today. Hayden will be back with us tomorrow. We had some scheduling issues, but I'm here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I just want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms. We are over on YouTube and we are also on SiriusXM. So let's get into a little bit of preseason talk. Obviously, there's not a ton of super serious analysis about preseason. I've seen a little bit of, well, Elvis wasn't very good in the game last night. He allowed 3 goals on 17 shots or whatever it was. But it's preseason. It's fine. I'm not going to get worried about Elvis until I have to get worried about Elvis. I am wary, but I'm not worried quite yet. But I wanted to start with the game in Pittsburgh, which was more of the kind of the bubble players and the younger guys on the team. Not a lot of veterans there, but still, the Blue Jackets put up a pretty good fight. They were down 2-0 at the end of the first period, came back, scored 2 goals of their own. Really great to see Jack Roslovic get a goal. Really fun to see Owen Sillinger get a goal as well. David Jiricek assisted on that one. Just a really nice little link up there. And then they would lose in the shootout, which it's a skills competition, it's a coin flip, etc. Whatever you want to say about the shootout. I like the shootout, but it's basically meaningless at this point. But I thought we saw some good glimpses of, guys like Owen Sillinger, who will likely be a monster again this season, or not likely, he will almost definitely be a monster this season. I thought Roslovic and Bemstrom was a fun combination. I think they've been skating mostly with Liam Fuji, which is kind of a little bit like the Blue Jackets Twitter reject line. But overall, I liked a lot of the plays. I thought it was, again, it's only preseason, but I thought the Sillinger brothers were good. I thought Arundel looked pretty sharp. He played, I believe, the second half of the game, and then the overtime plus shootout obviously didn't allow a goal. Jet Greaves also looked fine. I think he made 15 saves, allowed 2 goals. So goalies, I'm not worried about in this game. Arundel, I think if he keeps playing like that, I think he's probably going to make a pretty solid shot at maybe not making the Blue Jackets roster, but being their third goalie, which, we've talked about a lot on the show. I am more than okay with that. I think it would give a lot of stability to the position. And that's kind of all I have to say about Arundel. Will it happen? Maybe not. But I think all signs are kind of pointing to the Blue Jackets need a little bit more of a safety net, especially Tarasov starting the season injured. As far as I understand it, if it was regular season, he'd be playing. But because it's preseason, because it's training camp, they are giving him some time to rest. It's the same deal with Kirill Marchenko, who we haven't seen yet, but we will likely see in later preseason games. The Blue Jackets play again tomorrow, I believe. So we'll probably see some different lineups, some more players there. There was a couple of cuts over the weekend, which we're going to talk about in tomorrow morning's episode as well. But like I said, for the most part, I didn't mind the game in Pittsburgh. I thought it was extremely acceptable because, it's Pittsburgh. The Blue Jackets historically don't play super well in Pittsburgh, but they outshot the Penguins. They scored a power play goal. It was, everything is coming up Blue Jackets. They didn't concede on the penalty kill either. They were out hit and out blocked, but it is what it is. And they beat them in faceoffs. So for a group of bubble guys, kids, and tweeners, I feel extremely, extremely okay about how that game went. But we're going to take a quick break. And then when we get back, what we're going to do is we are going to talk about the second game, the one in Nationwide, because that to me is the more exciting game. It had some of the big names. It had Adam Fantilli, who I've got a lot to say about. And we'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We will be here Monday through Friday talking about games, talking about players, talking about all kinds of Blue Jackets stuff. And right now we're talking about preseason. Blue Jackets lost in the shootout in Pittsburgh in the afternoon game yesterday and ended up with an overtime win in Nationwide Arena last night. Let me just flip the game sheet over so I know what is going on there. But this, to me, was everything that the Blue Jackets needed for a preseason game. I thought they had collectively a really good game. I know people like to get down on Elvis. He ended up making, if I can pull up the shots on goal, he made 26 saves out of 29, which, again, I feel absolutely fine about that. It's preseason. It's his first game. It is what it is, you know? Here's the fun stuff though, is Alex Texier opens the scoring for the Blue Jackets. He looks really good. I really like that Texier Fantilly line A line. I assume Texier is probably a placeholder for Kirill Marchenko in the top six, but he looks really good up there. Clearly taking some time away, taking some time in Europe, coming back stronger, bigger, is looks like he's doing pretty okay for himself, which I'm really excited about seeing. He was on a really good streak right before he got injured a couple of seasons ago, and then obviously we didn't see him again that season or last season. But if he can stick in the NHL this season, I think he's going to be a really, really good middle six depth piece for this team, who's maybe good for 15 to 20 goals this season. And, you know, the Blue Jackets struggled to score goals last season, so getting more guys that can score goals is going to be a big deal. Speaking of guys that can score goals, Carson Meyer had 2 goals in this game. One assisted by Martin Recchi, one assisted by Adam Fantilli. It's that second one that I really want to talk about, because what a great pass from Adam Fantilli to Carson Meyer. I thought that was just phenomenal. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Adam Fantilli in just a second, but I want to talk a little bit more about Carson Meyer first, because this to me seems like a guy that is going to make a case to make this team. So Carson Meyer is a former 7th round draft pick of the Blue Jackets, I believe, in, I want to say 2018 or 2019. So he's been around and he's been developing for a little while. Carson Meyer, great game from him, really, really making a case to stay in the NHL. You know, every team's got them. I feel like every year there's someone who's like, oh, am I going to make the team? Is he not going to make the team? Like, and I think this year that might be Carson Meyer. I've seen a lot of people saying that this might be Jordan Dumais. He also had a really good game. I've pulled up his stats. He was a 6th round pick in 2017. Excuse me. I always get him and Tyler Angle mixed up. Tyler Angle was the 7th round pick. Carson Meyer picked in the 6th round. And if you get an NHL player out of Carson Meyer, like, that draft pick is a big, big win. Made his NHL debut back in 2021, 22, had 3 points in 13 games, had 1 point in 14 games last season. But he was really good for the Monsters last season, 26 points in 34 games. And I thought he looked really, really good in this game. That pass from Adam Fantilli was fantastic, but I think Carson Meyer really, really took advantage of positioning, and just like, that's a lot of hockey, is just being in the right space at the right time, and he was definitely in the right place at the right time. Credit to Adam Fantilli for the shot. And speaking of shots, Jordan Dumais' wrister that I think broke the sound barrier. I still don't think Jordan Dumais is NHL ready. I know a lot of people are kind of saying that he might be. They want to get him a waiver for the AHL, and like, I feel fine about that, but I won't be heartbroken if he goes back to the QMJHL. I still don't think he's NHL ready. And he's probably two years away from being a full-time NHLer if he makes it at all, like minimum. But great shot. Kent Johnson with some Panarin-like play on that overtime winner. That was a really fun trio, actually, of Dumais, Johnson, and Denton Matejchuk on the back end. Like, I enjoyed that overtime shift a whole bunch. Matejchuk, another player that people are kind of pushing to turn pro. Again, I'm fine with him going back to Moose Jaw, but we'll see. A lot of people are kind of like, well, maybe he should get a waiver as well. I don't necessarily agree, but I can see where people are coming from. I also don't think that you can like overdevelop a defenseman, especially when he is, I think, literally still. He's not even 20 yet. I don't think he turns 20 until like November or December. So we'll see how that goes. Overall, really, really great game. They outshot the Penguins. Did they score on the power play? They didn't score on the power play this time. They thrashed them in faceoffs, and it was just a really fun game. But I would like to talk about Adam Fantilli just to finish this little section off, because wow, what a game. 2 primary assists. He looks extremely NHL ready. He got power play time. I still love that chemistry that he's got building with Laine. I think if Pascal Vincent is a smart man, he will staple those two together. I saw someone on Twitter talking. I can't remember who it was. So if it was you, please tell me, and I can give you credit. But I saw someone talking about how they seem to be building the top 6 through pairs. So they are probably going to put Gaudreau and Marchenko together. I think that was a combo that really had some legs last season. And then I assume Boone Jenner will slot into the middle of those guys, and they appear to be building a line through Fantilli and Laine. So the obvious person to put on that line is Johnson. I think those 3 together is going to be just so much fun, so electric. But really, you could do any kind of combination. I also wouldn't hate Johnson centering Marchenko and Gaudreau, and Jenner playing on the wing with Fantilli and Laine. I do worry about the other team's defense in that situation, because that's 3 big boys that at least 2 of them like to crash and bang, and the third one can definitely crash and bang if he feels like it. But I know, again, I've said this a ton this episode, preseason means not a lot. We've seen the Blue Jackets have terrible preseasons and then come out really hot to start the season. We've seen them have fantastic preseasons and then go 0-8 to start the season. So, like, it's tough to look at these 2 games and be like, man, the Blue Jackets look great. They took 3 out of 4 points from Pittsburgh, who, they struggle to beat at the best of times, but there's some really, really encouraging signs in both of these games. I also want to shout out Stanislav Svozil, who played in the game at Nationwide. Really, really liked his game. He's almost definitely going to be a monster this season, but it feels like they've got a real gem there in Svozil. So definitely, if you are going to be keeping an eye on the monsters, keep an eye on that guy. But I'm giving the Blue Jackets an A for effort and a B for execution. In yesterday's games, they play the Blues tomorrow, I believe. So we'll see how that goes. Again, I think it's probably going to be a different lineup. It's in St. Louis, so probably you'll get a couple of veterans traveling, because I don't know off the top of my head what the rules are for preseason and how many veterans you have to ice. But you have to ice a certain amount of veterans. You can't just send all of your like CHL kids to get battered. But they're playing in St. Louis. We'll see what happens there. We'll see if anyone kind of makes a comeback from any of the injuries. I believe Igor Chinikov is also sitting out at the minute due to a back strain. Don't quote me on that. I believe it's something in his upper body. Not serious, but again, no point pushing it in preseason. And that's kind of it for preseason talk. There's an off day tomorrow, so there won't be any more cuts. No, excuse me, it's an off day today. Apologies. On Monday, tomorrow there might be a few cuts after morning skates. Let's practice. We'll see. But tomorrow morning we're going to talk about the cuts that have happened so far. A couple of players have gone back to juniors. PTOs have been released and that sort of thing. But I imagine we'll have a little bit more of that to talk about in tomorrow's episode, where Hayden will return, and I'm sure he'll have lots of opinions on Adam Fantilli as well, specifically, but scheduling was kind of an issue today, so you just get me. And sorry about that if you are one of the noted Jay haters that listens to this show. I get it, I really do, but Hayden will be back tomorrow. We're going to take another quick break. In a minute, we're going to talk about a rumor that I heard earlier today about who the new assistant/associate coach could be for the Blue Jackets, and I'll tell you who that is in just a minute here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I've got to tell you about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make sure you snap into action this NFL season because new customers to FanDuel are going to get $200 in bonus bets. And that's guaranteed. All you have to do is place a $5 bet and you get $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose that $5 bet. So if you'd put money on the Dolphins scoring about 800 points on the Broncos yesterday, you would get $200 in bonus bets, and you probably would have made a fair amount of money on that $5 bet. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and even more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL, and also us, the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's talk about coaching, because there is an open coaching spot on the Blue Jackets staff at the minute. Obviously, Pascal Vincent stepping up from associate head coach to full head coach. I believe that role is currently being filled by an interim. I think Jared Boll has been doing a little bit of coaching. He was on the bench in Pittsburgh, which is really fun to see. I know he's been doing some good work in the player development department, but I heard a rumor today from a source that Mark Recchi, former Pittsburgh Penguin player development coach, he was with the New Jersey Devils between December 2020 and I think March 2022. So he was there for about a season and a half, or well, most of 2 seasons, I think. I can't do math off the top of my head. But he has been spotted in and around Columbus a couple of times, and it looks like the coaching interviews are going well. He was, a couple of people have confirmed he was seen at the Eastern Chiller Ice House on Saturday when the open practice scrimmage, etc., was happening there. And I happen to know that he is in town again at the minute, presumably for a second interview. So we'll see how that goes. I liked Recchi as kind of I wasn't super up on his whole like coaching stuff, but I've looked into kind of his history and what he's done. He was director of player development for the Penguins. He was one of their player development coaches. He was an assistant coach there after Rick Tocchet left to coach the Coyotes. Didn't have his contract renewed, went to the Devils, and then was fired by the Devils at the end of the 2022 season. I believe that was when they just fully cleaned house and started with a whole bunch of new guys, which that makes sense. But I mean, he's got a bunch of awards. He is a 3-time Stanley Cup champion as a player. He was with Pittsburgh in 2016 and 2017 as their development coach, 7-time All-Star. He won the Eddie Shore Award in 2010. Like he has got some silverware, which is always fun. And I think he's the kind of guy that Yarmo likes to bring to his team. He was a really, really good player. Played for a lot of teams: Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Montreal, Philadelphia again, Boston. Had a cup of coffee with the Thrashers and the Lightning, and also 20 games for the Hurricanes. So a ton of different teams, over 1,500 points in just over 1,600 games. So obviously nothing is confirmed yet, unless they confirm it literally as I'm recording this episode, which sounds like a thing that they would do. But I don't hate this as a potential hiring. I think with the departure of Babcock, the Blue Jackets need to have someone with a little more experience. I don't know how long Steve McCarthy has been coaching off the top of my head, but I believe it's not very long, maybe 5 years or so. So it'll be good to have someone like Recchi who's been around the block and has coached in a lot of, a fair amount of places. And okay, McCarthy has been coaching since the end of the 2016 season. So he's been around a little longer than I thought he had, but I still think that Kekalainen wants to bring someone with a little bit more experience in, because it's Pascal Vincent, who again has been coaching for a while, but has never had that head coaching position, and Steve McCarthy, who's been around for 7 years. So maybe they'll bring in Recchi. He brings a little bit of experience, a little bit of grit, and presumably will not take players' phones and look through them, which is always a plus. So yeah, I don't hate it. Hopefully we'll have some more information when we record either tomorrow or the day after. We'll see, but that's kind of all I've got for you today. Tomorrow, like I said, Hayden's going to be back. We're going to talk a little bit more probably about preseason, about training camp, who we liked, who we didn't, who has impressed us, who is on the bubble to make the team. We're going to talk probably about the cuts that happened over the weekend, maybe some more cuts that happen between this recording and that recording. We'll see. But that's all for us. That's all for me. For today, I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email us at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And thank you once again for listening, for making us your first listen of the day every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. We are 6 YouTube subscribers away from our next milestone, I believe. So that's very exciting. So if you haven't subscribed, please feel free to do so. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.